Hello students, in this video we will discuss about second chapter of class 9th geography, that is physical features of India. In this, every time whenever we say the word physical features means usually we think about mountains, plains, plateaus. So in this we will discuss about what type of mountains are there in India, what are the plains, what are these plateaus, where are this plateau region, where is this where are these plains, where is this plateau region. So like this, India, it is equipped with different types of physical features. So the main purpose of this chapter, it discusses about this physical features of India, what type of physical features are there and how they are important, how they are useful to our country, what are its main characteristics. So all these things we will discuss in this video lecture. So mainly in India we have 6 main physical divisions or 6 major physical divisions are there in our country. So what are these 6 physical divisions are this? The first one is Himalayan Mountains, Northern Plains, the Peninsular Plateau, the Indian Desert, coastal plains as well as islands. So total of 6 major physiographic divisions are there in our country. So in the map, when we look into that, where are these Himalayas, where are these northern plains, we'll see in detail. So these Himalayan mountains, see in the northern part of India, making something like an arc to our country, this region is the Himalayan region. So in detail we will discuss about this Himalayas. Then just below this Himalayas, this green color shaded region, this region we call it as this northern plain region or northern plains, which are lying just below this Himalayas. And below this Himalayas you find this peninsular plateau. You see here, below this northern plains you find this peninsular plateau region, which is just lying below this northern plains. And the next one is this the Great Indian Desert. You all know that this Great Indian Desert is also known as this Thar Desert, which is located on the western part of our country in the state of Rajasthan. Then the other one is about this coastal plains. These coastal plains, you can say again there are two different types of two varieties of coastal plains are there. On the eastern side we call them as this eastern coastal plains, which are in this just in between Bay of Bengal as well as Eastern Ghats. So the region between Bay of Bengal as well as Eastern Ghats, this green color region, we call them as this eastern coastal plains. And between this Arabian Sea, as you all know on the western side is this Arabian Sea, between this Arabian Sea and this Western Ghats, this small narrow zone, we call it as this western coastal plains. So these two things are, we can call them as this coastal plains. Then when it comes to the islands, we have different types of islands are there in our country, but mainly two different group of islands are there. On the southwestern part of India we have this Lakshadweep Islands. On the southeastern part of India we have Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So these are the major physical divisions of our country India. So in detail we will discuss about one by one. First we will discuss about this Himalayan mountains, what are its features. Then we will discuss about northern plains, what are its characteristics, peninsular plateau, Indian desert, coastal plains and islands. So then we will also discuss how they are playing a very important role in our country, how they are useful for our country. Let's discuss in detail about this, the first major physical division of India, that is about this Himalayan mountains. What are these? Where are these Himalayan mountains? What are its features? So these Himalayan mountains, if you look into the map, you see they are almost covering this region in the northern part of India. So what are these features are that? Geologically, that means according to this geological age, they are young and fold mountains. According to the age, the Himalayas are considered as young mountains, and at the same time they are also called as this fold mountains. Fold mountains in the sense they look in this direction, folded direction. So the Himalayas, they can be considered as this fold mountains. So that is the first important feature of this Himalayas. Then the next one is that they run from the west to east direction, from Indus to Brahmaputra. That means you see here, suppose just if you take this markings, this is north, south, east as well as western direction, you see the Himalayas, they are running from this western direction to the eastern direction, that is from the river Indus to this Brahmaputra. And the next one is that they are rugged and loftiest mountains. Rugged means, you see, they are not same, they are something like uneven. Rugged means something like uneven, not same everywhere. Sometimes some mountains may be higher, some mountains may be smaller. So like this, these mountains are rugged mountains. At the same time, loftiest mountains, that means some of the tallest mountains, tallest peaks are present in these Himalayan mountains. So that is also the other important feature. The next one is that they form an arc which covers a distance about 2400 kilometers. These Himalayans, we also call them as something like arc of India. Why? Because you see, they are forming something like an arc to India, and the length of these Himalayas from here to here, it is almost around 2400 kilometers, and they are something forming like an arc to our country. Then their width varies from 400 kilometers in Kashmir. That means width means the breadth or width, that means the size of these Himalayas in Kashmir, it is something around 400 kilometers. The width is 400 kilometers in Kashmir, and to 150 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. That means this region, the width is something around this 150 kilometers in this Arunachal Pradesh, and in Kashmir the width is something around this 400 kilometers. Again, these Himalayas, they are further subdivided into three different categories. These Himalayas, we call them as this Great Himalayas, or sometimes we also call them as this Inner Himalayas, or sometimes we also call them as this Himadri. And just below this Greater Himalayas or Inner Himalayas, this one we call them as Lesser Himalayas, or sometimes we also call it as this Himachal. Then below this Himachal, the southernmost part of the Himalayas, we call them as this Shivaliks. So this Himalayas, they are again further subdivided into three different ranges. The topmost one, that means this one is this, we call them as Great Himalayas, or we also call it as this Inner Himalayas. Sometimes we also call them as this Himadri. And below this Great Himalayas, the middle one, we call them as this Lesser Himalayas, or sometimes we also call them as this Himachal Himalayas. And the below this Lesser Himalayas, the southern part of Himalayas, we call them as this Shivaliks. So now we will see in detail about this Great Himalayas, Lesser Himalayas, as well as Shivaliks in detail. Let us discuss in detail about this, the different ranges that are found in Himalayas. They are Great or Inner or Lesser Himadri, then Himachal as well as Shivaliks. What are its important features? So first we start with this Great or Inner Himalayas. Here they are the most continuous range, as I have shown in the map. The Great Himalayas, they are very continuous from west to the eastern direction without any break in the middle. So they are the most continuous range in this Himalayas. Then the average height of these mountains that are found in this Great Himalayas, it is something around 6,000 meters. The average height, if we calculate all these prominent mountains in that Great Himalayas, average height, it is coming around 6,000 meters. And this range contains all prominent Himalayan peaks. Some of the prominent Himalayan peaks such as Mount Everest are also found in this Great or Inner Himalayas. And the core of this Himalayas is composed of this granite. Core of this Himalayas means inside of this, deep inside of these mountains, it is composed of this something known as this granite. Whereas on the outer side of these mountains, it is completely covered with snow with a number of glaciers. That means on the outer part of this Great Himalayas, you find only snow and glaciers. Number of glaciers you can find in this region, but whereas inside of this you find this granite. So these are some of the important features about this Great Himalayas. Then the next one, below this Great Himalayas, you see this Himachal or lesser Himalayas. And the altitude, that means average height of this Himachal or lesser Himalayas, it ranges from 3700 meters to 4500 meters. So the average height, it is lying between 3700 meters to 4500 meters. And the average width, that means the width of these Himalayas is something around 50 kilometers. And the very prominent and largest range, longest range in this Himachal or lesser Himalayas, it is this Pir Panjal. It is the longest as well as very important range. Not only this Pir Panjal, other important prominent ranges are Dauladhar as well as this Mahabharat. So these are some of the prominent mountain ranges that are found in this region, that is in Himalayas or lesser Himalayas. Then the third one is this, below this Himachal or lesser Himalayas, we find this Shivaliks. This Shivaliks, the width of this Shivaliks is varying from 10 to 50 kilometers, and the average altitude, it ranges from 900 to 1100 meters. Compared to this Himachal as well as Great Himalayas, the average height in this Shivaliks is somewhat very lesser. Then the valley lying between, that means the place lying between this Himachal, Himalayas as well as Shivaliks are known as this dunes. That's why some of the places we call them as with the dunes. For example, Dehradun, Kangra Dun, like this, different places which are located between this Himachal, Himalayas as well as Shivaliks, we call them as this dunes. One of the famous place we can call this Dehradun. So these are some of the important features of this Himalayan mountains. There again, Great Himalayas, Himachal Himalayas as well as Shivaliks. Now we have discussed that how Himalayas have been divided horizontally, such as Great Himalayas, Lesser Himalayas as well as Shivaliks. But apart from that, the Himalayas are also divided from this direction, that is from west to this eastern direction, by dividing based on these rivers. So let us see how they are divided vertically based on these rivers or between these rivers. So the first one is that this between Indus and Satluj river, we call those Himalayas, maybe for somewhere here we call them as Punjab Himalayas, or sometimes we may also call them as this Kashmir Himalayas or Himachal Himalayas. So between these rivers, that is between Indus and Satluj, we call them as Punjab Himalayas. Then after that, between this Satluj and Kali river, we call them as this Kumaon Himalayas. So somewhere here we call them as this Kumaon Himalayas. Then after that, between this Kali as well as Tisa river, we call them as this Nepal Himalayas. Maybe somewhere here we call them as this Nepal Himalayas. Then after that, between these rivers known as Tista and Dihang, we call them as this Assam Himalayas, which are lying in this region. So like this, the Himalayas are also have been divided from this direction, from west to this eastern direction, by demarcating with different rivers. Again, if you see, they are once again Punjab Himalayas, Kumaon Himalayas, Nepal Himalayas as well as Assam Himalayas. And the river Brahmaputra, it marks the easternmost boundary of this Himalayas. You see here Brahmaputra entering into this India. So this Brahmaputra, it marks the easternmost boundary of Himalayas. So if someone simply asks you what is the eastern boundary of this Himalayas, you can say it is Brahmaputra. So Brahmaputra is marked as the eastern boundary of this Himalayas. Then beyond this Dihang Jarj, there is one more small river, which is a narrow river which is flowing here, that is we call it as Dihang Gorge. Gorge means simply you can say a small narrow water body which is flowing in between two mountains or two hills. So that we call it as this gorge. So up to beyond this Dihang Gorge, the Himalayas bend sharply to the southern region. That means beyond this small Dihang Gorge, you see Himalayas, they are bending towards this southern region. So till here, from Kashmir to this river Brahmaputra as well as this Dihang Gorge, you see Himalayas, they are moving from west to eastern direction. But after crossing this Dihang Gorge, a small river between these mountains, it is the Himalayas are bending towards this southern region. You see here how they are bending towards this southern region, and these Himalayas which are bending towards this southern region, we call them as this Purvanchal. We call them as Purvanchal. Sometimes we may also call them as eastern hills, or sometimes we may also call them as eastern mountains, which are lying in this region. This one we call them as this Purvanchal, or sometimes we may also call them as this eastern hills. And there are different mountains or hills are located again in this Purvanchal. What are they? They are Patkai Himalayas or Patkai Hills, Naga Hills, as well as Manipur Hills. Then you can also call the last one as this Mizo Hills. So these are some of the different hills that are comprising in this Purvanchal, or we also call it as this eastern Himalayas or eastern mountains. So now we have seen about one particular great feature of physical feature of India, that is, what is that? Himalayas, the Great Himalayas, where they are located, what are its features, how they are horizontally divided, how they are vertically divided, what are their names. So all these things we have discussed very clearly. In the next video we will discuss about the next important physical feature of India, that is about, we'll discuss about this northern plains. Thank you.